As tensions remain high along the border between Israel and Lebanon, Israel faked soldier injuries to convince Hezbollah that it had scored a direct hit on a military vehicle and therefore ceased fire. RT correspondent Saya Tavinger has been following the story. Saya?
Yes, Hezbollah's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, today announced that while a flare-up with Israel at the border was over from this past weekend, the episode had launched what he's calling a new phase in which the Iran-backed group no longer has any red lines.
We told Benjamin Netanyahu that there are no more red lines because you have tried to change the engagement rules. We absolutely do not have any more red lines. The message is clear. If you launch an aggression, then all your border soldiers and settlement on the border or deep inside or even deeper will be absolutely in the circle of threats, targets, and response.
Now, Nasrallah's comments struck a bold tone, even though perception in the region has been that the longtime enemies privately want to avoid an all-out war. And this was very apparent when Hezbollah and the Israeli army exchanged cross-border fire on Sunday. In fact, during Sunday's explosion, Israel faked soldier injuries to reduce any escalated conflicts with Hezbollah. Now, what occurred was Israeli media photographed an army helicopter performing what appeared to be the evacuation of 2 wounded soldiers to hospitals after Hezbollah launched anti-tank missiles at an army base. The Israeli military had confirmed hits in Hezbollah's attack, but was silent throughout the 2-hour battle about whether there were any casualties. And then in the midst of the media confusion, a former general told Israeli army radio that there were no Israeli casualties before he was apparently told to stop talking to the media. But now it appears that the soldiers were in fact unharmed and bandaged with fake blood. Israel finally confirmed that there were no casualties in the attack and said it responded with artillery strikes on nearby Hezbollah positions. Now, the exchange that occurred was the most serious single exchange across the border in more than 4 years.
Now, Saya, changing gears here a little bit, Iran is warning that they will further exceed their limits of stockpile of these low-enriched uranium if Europe doesn't offer Tehran new terms on this nuclear deal by the end of this week. What's the update there?
Well, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is currently hosting his Iranian counterpart Javad Zarif for talks in Moscow today to discuss the latest developments in the JCPOA. And while Zarif said he valued the support given by Russia and China and labeled the nation's partners in the JCPOA, he also warned that Iran would further exceed limits of stockpile of low-enriched uranium if Europe doesn't offer Iran new terms by the end of the week.
If necessary, and if the Europeans fail to fulfill their commitments by Friday, we will carry out the third step.
Now, Lavrov is also slamming Washington's destructive JCPOA withdrawal.
You see here an attempt to provoke Iran into breaching the non-proliferation regime, into breaching cooperation with IAEA in order to find apparently a reason to use force that we condemn utterly and that will be harmful for the whole region.
Now, already Iran has gone over limits set by the JCPOA deal, but Iran has repeatedly said that they would comply with the requirements of the 2015 nuclear deal in full if the European nations would go and do the same. Sarah?